Hi, I'm Amy L. Bernstein, and I've got a load of information to share with you about how to become a serious author, seriously published, without getting an agent. Now, I want to be really clear because I'm not talking about self-publishing here. I am talking about how to get well published the traditional way, even if you never sign with an agent. At this point, I've had 4 books published with 4 different publishers. So I've learned an awful lot from this process, and I'm going to share as much of that as I can with you now. So let's get started. You can find success as an author without an agent. Let's look at some of the ways that you can do that and what kind of work you're going to have to do to make that happen. To be clear, getting an agent, it's wonderful, it's exciting, it's very validating, but it is not the only way to have a really great career as a writer. And I'm really happy with my career as a writer, even though I don't have an agent at this point. So you don't need an agent to do the things that you might think you do need an agent for, such as getting traditionally published with dignity, meaning you'll be respected by other writers and the marketplace generally, to build credibility and visibility as an author, to open the door to so many opportunities to speak, to be a keynoter, to teach. All the things that you want to do as an author are out there for you. To build your brand as an author so you become known for your kind of work and your genre, and to develop a long-term career in the way that really meets your goals and interests. You can do all of this without an agent and without self-publishing. So, who are these publishers who are going to help make your author life a reality? Well, I mentioned traditional publishers. So, those are the publishers who edit, manufacture, and distribute your book without you paying a dime. The minute you're investing something, you're not in a traditional publishing setup, you're in a hybrid setup. That's different, and that's not what we're talking about here. Many of these publishers cater to highly specific niches. A really famous one, for example, is Tor, which publishes a lot of science fiction. But some of them have a much broader catalog of fiction or nonfiction. So who are these publishers? They range in size from the micro, really small. They may have 1 employee or 2. They may only put out 1, 4, 6, 10, 20 titles a year. And they range from the really small of the smallest of the small, up to what we would think of as the mid-sized publishers, where they're putting out more like 100 titles a year, and they've got a much larger roster of staff. You don't need to be overly concerned with the size of the publisher, but it's important to understand how these folks are different from what we think of as the big 5, like Random House and HarperCollins. The big 5 are not your target here. The big 5 do require an agent. They're really built to only work in that particular kind of a pipeline. So that's not who you will be building your career with. So I wanted to give you a sense of how some of these smaller publishers are operating. Interestingly, I think that some or most of my books are with publishers in this micro category, which, you might think, oh, they're not real. They're probably barely hanging on by a thread. They don't know what to do. They're probably not professional. That's not true. The size of one of these publishers does not indicate the quality and care that they take with their manuscripts, nor does it mean that they're not selective. In fact, they're really selective because they're in fact taking fewer titles. So this is a good way to think about who these publishers are. I don't want to name names because there really are hundreds of them, and I'm not going to play favorites, although obviously I like my publishers. But this is the landscape that you are dealing with. Now, one of the first questions that's going to come up for you is, okay, so these publishers are out there. How do I find them? How do I hunt for them? Well, there's a lot of strategies that you can do besides literally sitting at your computer and using Google or an AI search to give you a list. One good thing for you to do is find books that you really like and really respect that fit your needs and your niche, and simply look at the book to see who published it. Then you can visit that publisher's website and see whether they are open to direct submissions or not. They'll make it very clear. Many publishers do only work with agents, and you'll be able to tell that from a publisher's website. If it's really unclear, you might think twice about wanting to approach that publisher. You can also visit book vendors who advertise at writers' conferences all over the countries, all over the country. There may well be one in your state or coming to an area near you. This is also an opportunity, by the way, for you to pitch. A lot of these writers' conferences advertise pitching to agents, but guess what? At many writers' conferences, publishers are also there taking pitches. That's how I got my most recent book contract for a novel, was by pitching directly to a publisher at a writers' conference. And I'd had my eye on that publisher for quite a while because I liked the work that they were doing. Similarly, go look in their library or your bookstore shelves and see what books you really like and that you'd like to be in the same universe, and see who is publishing them. If it's not a big five publisher, not in that Random House, Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins level, then you may want to go check them out. You also are going to look really closely to see if you can get on some lists for submission calls that come up periodically. My calendar is riddled with hold the dates for when certain publishers or other opportunities are open to submissions. So as you find publishers you like, see if they have a submission window and get that on your calendar. You can, of course, use AI to help you prepare a list of publishers, but as with everything related to AI, make sure you check the source material that's being cited to you. Make sure it's legitimate, make sure it's up to date. Don't rely on AI entirely. Use your own common sense and these other methods to help you figure this out. And then once you've narrowed your search where you think your manuscript might be a good fit, I really advise you to find one of their authors who's written a book you admire and reach out to that author. You can find them on social media. You can find them on their own website. Send them an email. Explain that you're thinking about pursuing that publisher and what has their experience been like. This is invaluable because an author who's been published with them is likely to give you a very honest answer about the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is one of the most important things that you can do before you go anywhere near submitting to a publisher. Due diligence. So now you've figured out how to find these publishers who are going to really help you kick off your long-term career as a writer without an agent. How do you decide where to submit? It is so important to follow a rigorous checklist. And I would be happy to share these slides so you can get a closer look at all the things that I put here on that list. But the long and the short of it is, you really want to study this publisher, how long they've been in business, how professionally they present themselves. Are they well represented? Are their books well represented on Amazon? Do they have clear submission guidelines on their website? Check out their own social media. How many followers do they have on Instagram or Facebook, for example? If it's very few, you have to ask yourself, well, why aren't they out there promoting their authors and their own catalog? So there's a lot of things that you want to look for here. You want to make sure that they're being professionally distributed. They should tell you who their distribution, how they're distributed, or you can look up one of their books on Amazon and you might be able to get the information that way. You want to make sure that they're putting out books that are also in audio and ebook. And if they're not, why not? If they're a so-called digital forward publisher, meaning they issue you an ebook and may or may not issue a print book, you want to think really hard about whether that fits your goals as an author for the long term. So there's a lot for you to consider. And going through this checklist is one of the most important things that you can do to begin to qualify whether you are a right fit for a publisher and whether they are a right fit for you. Red flags. Watch for them. So if a publisher that you're looking at is prominently displaying a lot of fee-based services and a lot of add-ons for you to pay for, that's a massive red flag. That is not a traditional publisher. That is either a hybrid publisher, or a so-called vanity press that's simply offering you a pay-to-play opportunity with no really good editorial gatekeeping and virtually no support on the back end. You want to make sure that the authors and their titles, the books themselves, are prominently and proudly displayed on the website. If you're not seeing much of that, or you're mainly seeing services that you can pay for, that is not a good combination. If the covers look really bad, amateurish, they look like they're just the lowest level of an AI generated image, that is also not a good sign, because they're not investing properly in the covers, and they're not supporting the best look that they can for their authors. You want to see if they do publish their submission guidelines really prominently on the website, and you want to make sure that they possibly have their own catalog displayed or their back catalog, and you want to see how well their published titles are showing up on Amazon. That's important too. So let's imagine that you actually go out there, you submit your manuscript to a publisher, the publisher that you think is really going to represent you the best and represent your genre and represent your kind of book the best. So you get that publisher. What are you going to do next? You're going to scrutinize your contract. You're going to ask them, grill them about what kind of marketing support they offer. You're going to ask them how they treat advanced reader or advanced review copies of the book. Do they put it up on NetGalley or somewhere else for reviewers to download? How professionally are they treating you as an author leading up to your launch? And do they offer you any support at launch? If you interview one of their published authors, you can get a lot of insights into this kind of information. And I really encourage you to do that, and to also ask questions of the publisher before you sign that contract. What are you really in for? So I've got quite a bit of experience in this area, as I mentioned, and I will say that no two publishers are the same. I have found, for example, that one of my publishers creates this enormous guidebook that it shares with all its authors, which includes lots and lots of step-by-step information and resources for authors to do a lot of marketing on their own behalf. Another one of my publishers really leans heavily into bringing authors together so that they can network, support one another's books, learn from one another, crowdsource information, and generally lift one another up. So these publishers do operate differently. And if you're going to go into this and honestly look for the way to find a publisher who's going to help you launch a long-term career, you need to meet these publishers where they are. If you are with a micro publisher and there's 1 to 2 people who are on a paid staff, and they've got some freelance editors they pay perhaps around the country, and other things that are done by networks such as distribution and all that kind of thing, and how they contract for audiobooks, that's not in-house. You need to understand that you are dealing with a small business, and you have to expect that there are some limitations to that small business. And that's why you want to ask so many questions up front about what they can actually do for you. But as I said at the outset, small does not mean incompetent, and a lot of the work is often or always going to fall to you, and that's part of meeting the publishers where they are. These days, authors are responsible for their own marketing. Get used to it, accept it, learn how to do it, lean into it, and don't expect that your publisher is going to do everything for you. These are some tips about how to get happily published traditionally without an agent. If you follow these tips and you do your homework and you do your due diligence, you can have a really brilliant, happy, successful career. I'm looking forward to possibly landing a 5th publisher for another novel. Every novel has its best fit. Every author has her best fit as well. And I really hope that you find yours. Good luck and happy hunting for the publisher to launch your career.